Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks is an action-adventure game that was developed and published by Midway Games and released on the PS2 and Xbox in September of 2005. Although the gory marketing for this title did run into some controversy at the time, the game went on to sell over 1 million copies and reviews were fairly strong, averaging at 7 or 8 out of 10. Shaolin Monks is actually one of a few spin-off games from the well-known Mortal Kombat fighting game franchise. Centered around two of Earth's mightiest warriors, Liu Kang and Kung Lao, everything takes place just moments after the first Mortal Kombat tournament where the Outworld realm was defeated. The evil sorcerer of the Outworld, Shang Tsung, then turns into one of the biggest sore losers ever and decides to go outside of the rules of the tournament and lead an invasion to Earthrealm by attacking the home of our main characters, the Wushu Academy. After defending the academy from an attack, our heroes then take the fight to Shang Tsung and his allies by travelling to Outworld in the hope of preventing Earth from being conquered. The plot is middling at best, and while this narrative does not have considerably more depth than your usual entry in the MK series, it's not disappointing and delivers the slightly campy tone that you've come to expect. Now, if we're talking gameplay, there are two ways that I could describe Shaolin Monks. I could fill you in by calling this a action-adventure / beat-em-up that takes place in the Mortal Kombat universe, but if I really wanted to hit the nail on the head and let you know exactly what type of game this is, I'd describe it as a Mortal Kombat skin for God of War. I came into this game expecting a more modern version of Streets of Rage, but it is very hard to ignore just how much this game resembles God of War. So I know what you're thinking. God of War is great, and both Mortal Kombat and God of War feature plenty of ridiculous gore, so it seems like a great fit. And you would be correct to assume this, but sadly, Shaolin Monks misses the mark a few times in my opinion, and leaves you feeling like you're playing a clone of lesser quality. The game sees you, or you and a friend, working through mostly linear environments with a fixed camera as you get stuck into endless scraps with the enemies littered throughout the areas. Most of your time will be spent doing exactly what you'd expect in a beat-em-up, and to this game's credit, it does offer quite a few moves and combos for you to learn in order to keep things fresh during your playthrough. You have quick attacks which allow you to keep enemies at bay and build up a combo, launching attacks which allow you to juggle opponents in the air, power attacks which really should just be renamed to heavy attacks, and you also have throws that allow you to grapple people and toss them in whichever direction you like. The combat is enjoyable, not massively challenging, but still requires you to take on multiple enemies at once, and if you're not careful enough about controlling a crowd, you'll be overwhelmed fairly quickly. What also makes the fights a little more interesting is the destructible objects and environments. There are plenty of ledges to throw enemies off, occasional walls of spikes to throw enemies onto, and from time to time walls to throw enemies through. You'll also have access to bladed weapons to help you on your way, and although they'll eventually break down, they do add some nice variety to the gameplay. In addition to all of this, it wouldn't be a Mortal Kombat game if it didn't feature fatalities, and in this game they are special moves that run on a meter. Throw enough punches and kicks and you can activate one of your special moves, and you're given a small window to enter a combination of buttons to decide which move you'd like to perform, and you won't be disappointed with the result. Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks is a solid game in most aspects and doesn't suffer from any serious lacking quality anywhere. To say that I was bored playing this game would be an exaggeration, but there are definitely moments where my brain turned off and I was just mashing buttons. Now personally, I think standard enemies have far too much health, as you don't really take anyone down quickly, and this means you tend to linger in some areas far too long as you hammer the same combo again and again just so you can progress to the next area. This may seem like a bit of a petty complaint, but most people you come up against don't even try to block your attacks, so you spend a good amount of time waiting for people to get off the ground so you can hit them again and get it over with. The same could be said for boss encounters throughout the game as well. While they present more of a challenge due to their attacks being more powerful than most, 90% of your fights just boil down to you spamming certain attacks. You are not really required to block or dodge enemy attacks, nor are you required to time your own, and because of this, it feels like the game is missing that little bit of extra depth that makes a good game a great one. Not all games need to be incredibly deep. In fact, in the beat-em-up genre, this is fairly standard fare. And were this an arcade game that could be finished in an hour or two, it would be fine, but with the game being 6 to 8 hours long, things definitely get repetitive towards the tail end. Despite all of this, it is still a fun experience, and the only real blemish is the moments of platforming that will have you considering snapping your controller in half. In terms of its design, Shaolin Monks has held up quite well. The environments do lack a bit of character to make them a bit more memorable, but there are plenty of stages from the main Mortal Kombat series that pop up, and not only are they represented well, but they also fit seamlessly into the story. What stood out to me when playing the game was the animation of the characters, which when in combat feels very snappy and is translated very well from the fighting game that it originated from. Character models also look good in engine, however bizarrely most of the main characters look worse and more bland in the pre-rendered cutscenes than they do during gameplay. Sound design of the attacks has a nice exaggerated crunch to every punch and kick that definitely gives the combat more impact, and fights feel quite brutal. On the flip side to this, with this being a beat 'em up in which you perform the same moves and combos over and over again, there will be a lot of sound effects and grunts that you'll hear over and over again. Not massively bothersome, but when you've heard Liu Kang do this for hours on end, it might start to grate on you. While the story is a little silly and over the top, the voice work in this game falls between two stools. It doesn't sound serious enough or silly enough, and actually comes off more as poor lines delivered with no enthusiasm at all.
You're beautiful. Who are you?
Overall, Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks is quite a mixed experience. It has a solid foundation of good combat, decent looking environments, and a potentially fun narrative. At the same time, it lacks the depth that would save it from monotony, but still offers you plenty of mindless fun. You will absolutely get the most out of this game if you play it with a friend and have someone to chat to during the more boring moments. As a single player game, Shaolin Monks feels like a budget clone of God of War. As a co-op game, it provides you and a friend with some arcade style fun that you won't regret spending your weekend with.